Good evening and welcome to another Minions of the Zoo Diaspora stream over on my channel, the Harry channel. With me tonight are panel members and Minions Serenity Star 13.
Hello.
Sora Luna.
Hi.
And SkepTock.
Hi, everybody.
Hi. How was your day, Skep?
Oh, uneventful, just relaxed, boring, hot day here in Midlothian.
There was ice cream, though, right?
Ice cream was involved.
Excellent.
And the Bluebell Vanilla Bean, by the way, is and dogs barking, everybody take a drink. And the Bluebell Vanilla Bean is it's without peer. Seriously. Most people do the vanilla bean way too sweet. Bluebell does it right. So go Texas. Little creamery in Brenham.
Oh, good. We need to get them to send you free ice cream for the endorsement.
I just realized I just did a Bluebell commercial.
Well, because, most people, if you take up racing, you get a tire sponsor. I think you should get an ice cream sponsor.
Right. Exactly.
And you get a bonus tire out of the deal, so it's fine.
Yeah, spare tire around my waist. Yeah,
exactly. How are you doing, Sora?
Oh, very good. Spent the day outside.
Oh, didn't you go to some Star Wars concert yesterday?
I did. It was Return of the Jedi in concert with the VSO, the Vancouver Symphony Orchestra. So basically, it's the whole movie, and the music is live.
Ah.
And there's an intermission in the middle. So, it was fantastic. It is the first time I've seen this particular film on a big screen. That was fantastic too.
So which one is this? Number 2, number 5, number 3?
Well, no, technically 6. Number 6.
So in chronological order, it's number 3. In production order, it's number 6.
Okay. So it's the third prequel.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So it's the third of the original trilogy.
No, it's the third. It's the last of the original
third in production,
series.
6th in chronology. Actually.
Okay, there we go. That's what it was. It was flipped. Okay. Brain died. Gotcha.
It's the one with the Ewoks. If people
and the dancing at the end.
And the dancing at the end. Yeah, and it was the special edition, meaning that it was indeed the one with the shitty special effects, but that's okay. And by shitty special effects, I do mean the modern effects, not the lovely puppetry. And when he starts cleaning things up, when you it's like that Jesus painting. Stop. A little bit is fine, but you went overhead, and now we have Monkey Jesus.
Is this the one where it has Hayden replacing?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, that's what I thought. I was like, that's him as the Force Ghost. Fuck that shit.
It is him as the Force Ghost, but it's also they have the extra scene like in the cantina at the beginning. They have that wailing. Men in Black creature. Yeah. I mean, and the thing is that the way it's done and the way she comes across at the screen is like it's meant to be in 3D.
Mm-hmm. Do you mean this Jesus?
Yeah.
Okay. I usually Okay. What do you call? I call him Potato Jesus.
Oh, Potato Jesus is good. I called it Monkey Jesus.
That works too.
I couldn't remember what term it was called.
All kinds of wrong. Sorry. Go on.
Yeah, but it was that one. But you know what? It's fine. It doesn't take away. It doesn't really take away from the
experience,
whole feeling and experience. And I've seen the movie so many times that I don't really care anymore. But it was so good, and it's interactive. So it's one of those things where you don't sit quietly and wait. People cheer. There's a lot who came in costume. It was tons of kids who I don't think gave a shit about the movie, but the parents were enthusiastic. I did get a t-shirt because I am that person who throws money at overpriced screen printed stuff at concerts. But I think it's called Bandcamp 83, and it has a picture of Wicket on it.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a sleep shirt. I collect these to sleep in. They're my pajamas. But it was fun. It was just nice to get, and they were like last minute tickets too. I never saw this advertised anywhere. So like on buses, billboards, on the radio. I didn't even know it was here. And when it was just by chance through Instagram, like an ad that popped up. Went to get tickets, and it was like 80% sold out all weekend. So we lucked out on tickets.
Nice.
But yeah.
So, yeah, you love it when a plan comes together, even if there's no
That's
plan.
good.
That's good. That's
Yeah.
good. How are you doing, Serenity?
I'm good.
You good? The animal's good? Are you the only one of us that isn't in a heat wave right now?
I mean, compared to probably the rest, well, maybe not Sora, but compared to the rest of you, I'm not in a heat wave. But I've had a friend who used to live in Vancouver, and she said Vancouver and West Virginia's temperatures are pretty similar throughout the year. So I don't know if Sora's about the same temperature as me or not. I know we're
Are
having
you
pollen
in muggy
issues.
weather right now?
We're humid, but it's 64 degrees, which is about, I think, like teens for you and teens in Celsius, I think.
Let me. It's 16 Celsius right now. Let me.
Yeah, I thought it was a
switch
teen.
this over.
Yeah, so we're 64 degrees, 17 degrees Celsius for you all.
And what's that
Okay.
in Kelvin?
So
No, just don't do that. We don't want to go down that road.
But yeah,
If there's Kelvin, why isn't there a hop scale?
You started it, Harry.
They do make tea kettles.
There you go.
Okay, so shall we begin at the beginning?
Go for it.
Begin the beginning.
All right. So this is rare good news from the fight against cancer. Experimental rectal cancer drug caused all patients' tumors to disappear in a small trial. In an unprecedented clinical trial, a dozen rectal cancer patients saw their tumors disappear after they received an experimental drug, dostarlimab. And none of the dostarlimab. I love pronouncing the names of biologics. And none of the patients experienced significant side effects from the treatment. I believe this is the first time that this has happened in the history of cancer, and that this is the first cancer trial in which every patient entered remission.
Nope, I looked it up.
Okay.
Happened with Taxol on one of the first trials.
Okay. One of the trial leaders and a medical oncologist admitted it's too soon to say whether the patients will remain in remission or if the drug will work for others with different types of rectal cancer, but the results are cause for great optimism. Yeah, this seems pretty huge. There were about 4 different cancer stories that we could have talked about this week, and I chose this one just because I think it stands out.
Just the mechanism by which this worked as a proof of concept, and this is obviously a pretty solid, it's not a proof of concept, but it is we better investigate this first kind of a study, the way that this will be done. And this isn't fly-by-night stuff. This was in the New England Journal of Medicine, probably the leading medical journal in the United States, maybe in the world. It was 12 patients, but the fact that they got such a dramatic effect, and these people were deeply sick. When you have rectal cancer, they basically go in and just rotor-rooter out your back end. You lose your rectum, you usually lose a lot of the sigmoid, of the lower part of the large intestine. Men lose the prostate. I mean, there's all kinds of follow-on crap and functional compromise that happens as a part of the therapeutic, just trying to get all the cancer cells shipped out of your body. And to have something like this go in and biomechanically, essentially enhance the ability of the body to detect and kill these cancer cells, this is absolutely awesome.
Well, that's the holy grail that we've sort of been shooting toward.
Yeah, brother.
Yeah, is basically, can we give the body a hint to do what it needs to do?
Right.
Versus, can we find a drug that kills lots of things, but kills the host organism less quickly than the cancer? Which is where we are with Taxol.
Well, and before that, vincristine. But still, vincristine and Taxol, to be fair, have saved and prolonged a lot of lives.
Well, yeah, so, it's part of the regime.
Yeah,
that they use.
It is, but this is so much better. So it's if they really have stumbled on to something that they can reliably engineer biochemically, this is absolutely huge. Yep.
Yeah, good.
Huge.
Any comments, Serenity or Sora?
Nope.
Nope.
Anything that helps.
Yay, cancer
Cancer's-
drug.
Take the
Yep.
win, right?
I was going to say, anything that kick cancer's ass, we're good with it.
Cancer posting their L's online. That's what I want to see. All right. so-
Whenever we, my quick 2 cents for this. Whenever we hear positive cancer research actually doing things, that's fantastic, because there's a lot. I don't know about you guys, but there's a lot of cancer agencies here which are basically a scam to take money out of people, but they don't do anything with the money. So forwarding this, yes.
Yeah, I can tell you one of the other articles that was sent on. I mean, I'm not really a biotech person, but I can fake it well enough. And
Same.
one of the articles that was sent to me sounded like a really good thing, and then I realized, oh, this is just a PR from a company that's trying to say, hey, we found a small additional class of people that can use our expensive drug too to increase their life expectancy by about 6 months. You know, it's not a
boy.
cure. Yeah. You know, it has to do with basically it's like a Herceptin type drug. It's not interesting, but a lot of stuff gets sent out as PRs that's meant to sound like real news. This, I think, is real news. This is what we need more of.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Moving on. Okay. So apparently the EU, in their infinite wisdom, has decided that
I
Apple
hate
and
them.
everybody else can just suck it and use USB-C for charging their devices. Now, I understand the rationale. The rationale is, well, we don't want our cute little European landfills full of useless electronics. Why shouldn't I just be able to use the same charger I've used before? Why are you making me use this lightning charger? Well, Apple does have a reason. One is they want things to be super thin. The other thing is they want things to charge really, really quickly.
Yeah.
And previously, USB-C did not deliver enough juice quickly enough to do what it needed to do. And so they created their own connector. Having them go back to try to use USB-C without some kind of dongle that ships with it is going to be kind of crazy. I wonder if Apple will get away with just saying, here's the little dongle. It's like a lightning connector on one end and USB-C on the other.
I almost guarantee that.
Suck it,
I was gonna say
Europe.
That's what they'll do. That's exactly what they'll do.
Well, the
Exactly what they'll
USB
do.
Type C is like the oval-esque shaped one at the end, right?
Yeah, that's the new little one.
Yeah, that's a lot of new Apple phones use that already. At least, and I know my MacBook does too.
Well, the MacBook does. I didn't know there were any Apple phones that used it.
Yeah,
I thought
my
they were
mom-
still using
USB?
Lightning.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
my
no,
mom-
mine has USB-C.
Yeah, my mom has the new 12 mini.
I think it
And-
is.
Yeah, and it's the little one that's it's almost the perfect long oval shape. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's
Hold
a lot
on.
of them are already using it. So this lawsuit was literally no reason. They were already transferring over to that because they found a way to make the USB-C faster for Apple.
Well, the main thing is that it didn't deliver the power they needed before.
Yeah.
It wasn't really a lightning connector because there's nothing lightning about the dribble of power you could get out of USB-C. You can now
Yeah.
get over 200 watts through that thing.
Well, it's like I still have the charger that I got with my phone 3 years ago, and it's a Lightning because I have a 10s Max.
That's funny.
It's like
They actually have wireless charging on the 13 now, so they finally
Well,
caught up to that.
the cheat
Carl,
charge,
that's a
yeah.
superb comment.
It is
Yeah.
a good one, yeah.
what's like my
Yeah.
X10, my XS Max has wireless charging too, and I use that all the time if I can manage it. But I still have the original Lightning charger.
Yeah, I'm just against the EU telling people
Oh,
how to
yeah.
make their tech products.
that I
That's
agree
just
with.
generally the EU is not really where good ideas come from.
Harry,
Well, I
that's-
mean-
that's what pissed me off too.
Yeah,
I know.
no, I agree. It's one of those things. It's like it's one of those moments where it's kind of like, all right, guys, that's a little too late. Like Apple's already started to transfer over before this lawsuit, I think, even started, because I think they started using the USB-C on the regular 12, I think, and they're about to start talking about the 14 here pretty soon.
I think now that I'm looking at it, I think it's the Lightning.
Okay, well, if if it doesn't have a hole in the center, it's the Lightning. If it's got a hole in the center of the metal part, that's the USB Type C.
Yeah, I think
Cool.
it's Lightning. I don't know.
Yeah.
I thought they were lightning.
Well, my
Yeah,
mom's
my
12.
mine's the Lightning.
Yeah, my mom's 12 used the USB-C because we had to get her a whole new one.
Yeah,
I know
and
that.
what we're not going to do is we're not going to talk about the difference between USB-C and Thunderbolt 3 and 4
No,
because
no,
nobody
no.
wants to talk about that except for
Nope.
me. Okay.
Thunderbolt.
Well,
Isn't
no,
that,
me.
isn't that
No.
for isn't that for screens?
Well, they go together, Thunderbolt and Lightning.
Yeah.
But as you said,
Very,
we're
very
not going
frightening.
to talk about it.
Exactly. I'm sorry, Skip. What did you say?
As you said, we're not going to talk about that.
We're not going to talk about that. This is us not talking about it. Okay.
Yeah.
I just want to put out there that the EU is also the one who says, you know what we should do? We should think of the children and put a screw on the back of every toy with batteries so that you can't pop off that case top and pull out the batteries and eat them. So that every time you need to change anything, you're going to have a screwdriver, undo everything, pop off the stuff, try not to lose the screw, and change your batteries because that's more efficient and helpful.
But it'll be an electric screwdriver that's charged by USB-C, so it's all good.
And they say
OSHA.
Americans are too paranoid.
OSHA wants to go to permanent rivets.
Nothing
Yeah.
McNoys ever again.
Yeah. Well, they could use super glue, but I hear they taste better when you dip them in Mom's acetone.
No. Wait a minute. Use Carl's idea. Just charge the toys wirelessly.
Yeah.
Let's just charge everything wirelessly, and then
Oh, that's
Tesla's
not
dream
good.
will come true.
Yeah, that's not gonna be horrible.
So, speaking of bad ideas, California Animal Shelter to require those adopting pets to support gun restrictions. I'm not even going to scroll
Motherfucking
down.
morons.
Not even going to scroll down because it's just
Hi, Geodes.
IGOs.
Hello.
Hey,
No,
It's how are you going to prove it? How?
You have to.
It's on
My
the honor
my
system?
fear is they're going to make people sign a petition, like
Sign it,
actually
Yeah.
put
sign
your information down.
It will be effectively an affidavit.
I will sign see more butts.
the owner told NBC News that a number of the shelter's donors are Republicans and have threatened that they will cut off financial support if she doesn't remove the interview question about gun control. Well, yeah.
Yeah, that's their right.
Oh,
They're donors.
so it's just an interview question that she says.
Yeah.
Do you support gun control? And you have to say yes, and then you get the puppy.
I say, fine,
So-
keep your money. Still, it's this woman told the network, if I go out of business as a result, I go out of business, but I have to do something. And this is the only thing I can do to make that point that mass killings by people armed with guns have to stop. And
Boy,
then I
I'll
think she
stop
said,
it.
re.
God, Jesus
Yeah,
Lord.
boy, get those guns out of the hands of law-abiding citizens. That'll stop the killings.
God forbid.
Mhm.
Because you know, everything is always done legally. People do bad stuff with legal stuff, not illegal stuff. That doesn't happen. No. God damn
Well,
idiots.
too bad Prospero is had to turn in early because she's got busy
What do you
real
mean?
life stuff.
She's in
She
the
did.
chat.
I know, but she's going to turn in early. The point is, I could ask her specifically about the rulings that said the police are under no obligation to provide any kind of timely protection of you. You can call the police, and it's almost more like a best effort kind of thing. Are they
Oh,
obligated to make sure you're safe? No. So
Oh,
they
I-
want to.
I love.
Go ahead.
I love the quote above. We believe that if we can make our voices heard on how we feel, we can make an impact. We do not support those who believe that the Second Amendment gives them the right to buy assault weapons. If your beliefs are not in line with ours, you will not adopt a pet to you.
Mhm.
So the animal's going to suffer.
Yeah.
Fuck
Well,
you, bitch.
maybe
Probably a
they're
kill
like-
shelter, too. Yeah.
They're probably a PETA affiliate, so in the end,
Probably.
euthanizing the animal is better than having them being a slave, aka your pet.
Mhm.
Yeah.
See, I
It-
agree. Woof woof.
It's better to let the human race die out than to allow PIV sex to take place ever again, because it's oppressive and wrong. It's true. Okay, this is dumb. We're all dumber for no hearing this. Moving on. Okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
she's in 1,000 Oaks. That explains it.
Okay, this is actually infinitely dumber than the last article, believe it or not.
Hey!
What?
Canada.
Biden will let states and tribes block pipelines, reversing another Trump energy policy. It's
I-
like they don't want there to be any pipelines.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
What do you think, Geodes? Because I know you were piping off about this in Discord. How do you feel about this? Do you think that it's better just to use trucks and then have them burn a lot of fuel to move the oil we're going to use anyway versus a relatively safe pipeline?
I mean, hear me out. Solar freaking roadways. No,
Solar just put
this...
solar panels on top of the trains and then maybe put a sail on there. It'd be great.
Let's just do teleporters.
Exactly. Yeah, no, it'd be great. No, this is dumb. This is really dumb.
It is dumb because you're essentially saying that there are so many ways that tribes and states can cock-block any pipeline that mostly what it's going to be used for, it may not stop all these things, but just imagine all of the special favors that are going to be required to get anything done. Mm-hmm. Because you're literally just giving somebody a way to just extort you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I have a question.
Sure.
What kind of pipelines can they block? There are pipelines and there are pipelines.
Oh.
Are these natural gas pipelines? Are there these oil pipelines? Are they water pipelines? What kind of pipelines?
Any of them. All of them. I was assuming that it was oil pipelines.
I think it's probably natural gas. I think that's probably the primary target of this. Mm-hmm. Is on the natural gas, because what they want to do is they want to disincentivize natural gas fracking because they believe fracking is a clear and present danger to the environment, and the economic impetus for fracking, particularly in places like North Dakota, is just, it's irresistible.
I think people don't realize how much of a difference fracking actually made. Fracking freed up so much natural gas and petroleum, but so much natural gas that essentially what's a low carbon fuel became relatively cheap, and a whole bunch of coal and oil powered plants switched over to natural gas. So arbitrarily making it much more expensive because a new regime is in DC destabilizes everything. And when renewables don't work the way we need them to, which happens. You remember those lovely winters, Scap?
Mm-hmm.
When all of the wind turbines froze over in Texas and people got legitimately cold.
Yeah, it was cold in my house. I mean, we were bundled under blankets, had dogs lying on top of us, huddled, literally huddled together for warmth. It was 50 degrees in the house.
There's a big difference between going on vacation skiing all day and then doing that in the evening, with a fire in a cabin voluntarily, and that just being where you live.
Right.
for like over a week.
No,
that gets old quickly.
Very quick. Tempers fray, trust me.
Yeah. So what they do is they use what are called peaker plants that are natural gas fired, and they are not the cleanest things in the world. But they are natural gas fired, and they're big old jet turbines that can drive generators in a fairly small footprint, and you can turn them on really quickly.
Yes.
That's one of the nice things about natural gas. Going from off to on with one of these is quick. So they like having these things. So even with renewables, if it's going to be a very long time before we don't need natural gas, but the zealots that are there are looking at it not just as a carbon source, but as a source of other greenhouse gases because of the methane. And they would just love it all just to stay in the ground. They're zealots and true believers.
The thing, what you said about, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying, yep, I agree.
Okay.
One thing you said about methane being a low carbon fuel, that's absolutely true. You're talking about 1 carbon and 4 hydrogens per molecule, as opposed to between 8 and 10 carbons and 20 or so, roughly 22 in that area for those molecules of hydrogen. The ratio makes a huge difference because the carbon is what is the straw that stirs the drink.
Right. So basically, natural gas is a blend of different gases, but most of it is methane.
methane.
So CH4 is what he's talking about. So you basically break that apart, and then the hydrogens form water, the carbons form CO2, energy is released, and then we all don't freeze to death. That's how this whole thing works. Switching from anything else that isn't renewable to natural gas is good for the environment if you care about emissions.
Yep.
Natural gas is actually a great bridge technology. But again, these people don't know what they're doing and don't care about you. So, yeah.
They're in the rezone.
Yeah. All right. Let me, before I get too much preachy or too much longer, move on if we're done. Okay. So, let me take a look at this animation here. This was what the traffic looked like in Silicon Valley yesterday from 5 to 6 p.m. Let me describe to you how abnormal this is.
That looks amazingly good, Harry.
Well, it's amazingly good from the perspective of being able to get from place to place. It's amazingly bad from the perspective of what the hell has happened to our economy or our transportation system. Because normally most of that would be red.
Yes.
This is people getting off work, you know, assuming they had actually gone into an office, and driving home or leaving work early and going somewhere for a 3-day weekend. You should see red all over this map, and you don't.
Yep.
This is terrifying. So I thought to myself, maybe I should do a little bit of investigation instead of just believing what's in the news. Because there's everybody who's got their explanation for why gas prices are so high. And so, like, Reason Magazine's put out their thing, and everybody, and of course Biden's got his explanation. It's just the greedy oil companies.
Well, it's Putin.
It's Putin. Putin. That's probably what it was. So I thought, okay, so I wonder what the demand for gasoline actually looks like. These are the statistics for how much gas is sold by refiners to distributors. And since there's almost no real inventory of gasoline that's maintained sort of near the end, near the cars, I mean, it would all disappear in a few days if the refinery shut down. This is a pretty good picture of how much gas everybody's using in the US. And you can see that 2000, there's this big dip. 2020, there's this big dip that's sort of associated with the pandemic. And then things sort of level out to a little bit below what they were for the preceding, years around 2014 on. And then it falls off a freaking cliff on March of 2021, goes down to here, and has just been sort of languishing in a level that's about half of what it was before the pandemic hit.
Wow.
So to my mind, I'm sitting here trying to make sense of this. I've never been particularly good with Say's law, which is S-E-Y. I think it's S-E-Y, apostrophe S's law. There's these people who talk about markets, talk about whether demand precedes supply or supply precedes demand. And I can usually come up with some reason to think it's one way or the other. But I'm looking at this and thinking, I can't think that it's our supply that should be the issue here. Because the demand is so low that unless half the refinery shut down overnight, I don't understand this graph. Scap.
Hang on. I'm sorry. Say that last sentence again.
So what I'm thinking here is I'm looking at the demand go way down. And of course, we know the prices are really high. And everybody's saying, we need to increase supply. We need to increase supply. There's not enough drilling going on. And of course, it's very convenient just to sort of say, well, it's Biden's fault for not allowing drilling. But this demand is so low, I don't know if it's the low demand causing the weird pricing or if it's the weird pricing causing the incredibly low demand. Because even as high as the pricing is, it's hard to imagine it dropping this much. And then the third scenario is our economy so broken because of all the shutdowns and the attitude problems of people not wanting to go back to work that there's a much deeper problem that we're not seeing because it's too terrifying to think about.
If you apply I think it's the 10-year analysis on this, go down to where it says no analysis applied, drop that combo box down there, down below. Yeah, right there, drop that and do the 10-year. We see a very interesting thing happen after that big decline. It stays, and we're talking about the blue line here.
This one
the
here.
dark blue one.
Yeah, the one with the very lowest number. What you see is a extreme decline, okay, and then stability, which means that we've hit a stable point, which means that neither supply nor demand are winning, and that's when that happens, you have a stable price point. When you see something like that, you usually, the way I was taught, you usually suspect that demand or efficiency is happening, and that is what is driving these stability in price. I suspect that's true here. I suspect people are saying, hey, rather than take two trips out to go to the grocery store and take the kids to McDonald's later, I'll take them to McDonald's first, then go to the grocery store. And, people are cutting down what they're driving. People are very conscious of the fact, I filled up my little RAV4. It cost me $60. That never happened before. And that's happening everywhere and you have a strict anyway people have become much more sensitive to the price of gasoline since it increased, and are behaving economically rationally. That's what that graph indicates to me, and the stability of the price point is the proof of it.
Yeah. Well, even it's been largely stable, but prices have been going up and up and up, and I don't see it trending any further down. It's like we've hit the minimum that people are willing to put up with.
I meant demand point. I said price, and I meant
demand. Okay, yes.
Stability of demand. Yeah. That's what I meant. Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah. We should be reaching a better equilibrium. This does not feel right to me, and I'm suspicious because so many people lie. Everybody's lying all the time for political reasons. I'm just a guy who noticed that this is messed up. Where's all the traffic?
Well,
I see this and I want to understand why. Is it because so many people have moved out of California that this is the new normal? Okay, fine. I can totally understand if that's the new case. That's amazing. Does it mean that a bunch of people are still working remotely? Maybe. But I want to know. I just want to understand, and I don't feel like I do.
Can we see Los Angeles?
No, because I haven't set it up.
Darn. Be interesting to look, though, wouldn't it?
I did look at it, and it was actually also light.
Oh, wow.
There you go.
But I had to screen grab this, then rescale it, and then and change the format, and then run it through an AI program to make it readable. Yeah, I already did 6 steps to get here. This is what you get, Skep.
I'm not being critical here.
I know.
Thank you.
All right. So before we talk about gas any longer, I'm going to go ahead and move us along. Oh, I had this price graph as well, but we don't necessarily obsess about that. We all know how terrible gas prices are. We don't need to go into it.
Just makes you
All
cry.
right. So how unpopular is Joe Biden?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I know what
the
the
answer
means.
to that is. The answer to that is pretty damn. He's doing a heck of a job.
Not that we're going to talk about it, but I am interested to see what the site I showed that I put in that I showed you, Harry, says after the everyone after the new polls come out about the thing that was shown on prime time that I'm not going to mention by name because I think it's a sham. But
well, you can mention it if you want. I just don't see any point in covering it because kangaroo courts. Everybody's already been talking about it.
Well, I mean,
and live streaming it, and I try to cover things that everybody hasn't already talked about.
Well, I know. I don't like. It's such a pile of horse shit that I don't even want to get into it. But it's like I want to see if the poll numbers change at all. But I know the last time I looked at the poll numbers about January 6th, it showed the majority didn't really care. Like I think it was showing that, and this is a Quinnipiac poll, so they always poll D more than R. Almost all of these do. But it showed, I think it was 43% said they cared, which means most people either were indifferent or didn't care about January 6th. So it's interesting.
Well, Scott Adams was talking about a poll about a week ago And essentially, if you ask Republicans, Democrats, and Independents what the most important issue is to them, so it's like we're playing Family Feud, what's number one? We can all list issues people care about, but what's the number one? The number one for nobody is COVID at this point.
Yeah.
It's nobody's number one issue.
Yep.
The economy is like the number one thing. Even the environment isn't number one for Democrats. But if you look at the things that they talk about on the news, they are things that are nowhere near the top of people's concern lists.
Yeah.
And they would just wish that they could manipulate all media to basically gaslight everybody into thinking, well, what's wrong with you? Why don't you care more about the environment or tiny shrimp or whatever the thing is that they care about on a given day. And I do think that the January 6th thing is it's just something, it's a shiny bauble to distract people. Well, and it's also like fan service for the faithful.
That was my thing. It's like, it's such a blatant kind of production.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the thing. But like the top things for Americans are affordability of healthcare, federal budget deficit, violent crime, illegal immigration, gun violence. And that's about it. Those are the very big problems. Everything that's above like 48% and higher. At least that's from Pew Research. And that's
the good one.
Yeah. But it's one of those things that like there, and it's interesting when you go down because this website, which has
538.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, like, if you look at it, it tells you if it's all adults, likely voters, registered voters, that kind of stuff, as well as gives the numbers of the poll, like how many people they polled. And it's interesting that like there's one, and I haven't looked into Morning Consult. I'm sure someone knows something about it, but Morning Consult seems to have more of a tendency to poll larger numbers and not in it, but they poll all adults, and that doesn't always mean anything because we don't know who are all adults, like who are you asking? So it's like, but still, it's one of those things. It's interesting to see the numbers not really fluctuate no matter what they do.
It is interesting. Mathematically, it's always interesting when you see that there's things called chaotic attractors, which actually explain stuff like this.
Yep.
Anyway, speaking of math, Nate Silver is the guy who founded 538. And so back in, what was it, the 80s and the 90s, you start getting stories about like the movie Moneyball.
Yeah.
Where people use mathematics to sort of predict, okay, this is how you make a winning team.
Yeah.
Now, Nate Silver was involved in that type of stuff, and then he took his know-how from that world, his ability to do that kind of statistical analysis, and started applying it to politics. And then when the internet came around and became ubiquitous, 538 grew out of it as a website. So this is all an extension of what started where people were applying mathematics to sort of human performance and psychology, and then it extended into politics.
What was the election that Silver called that was an unexpected victory, and he was like the lone pundit who
I don't remember. It's been such a long history the guy has.
Yeah.
I remember when he used to call into like KGO or something, and the talk radio people would have him on as a guest.
Cool.
Yeah, it's a long time. Yeah. Been a long time. Anyway, so Nate Silver's thing isn't really about being a polling organization per se.
Yeah.
His main thing is about doing really good analysis, which is why, you see this great graph and you actually can see the raw data points. It's aggregated. This is actually good. That's good really science. Useful. This is really good because you get to see the error bars.
Yeah.
And where the outliers are. And this tells me that this is a much more honest thing than a lot of the spun bullshit that you get from some of the other companies.
You could compute a coefficient of determination on this graph that would be meaningful, Harry.
You could tell how more gooder this data is than other data. Exactly.
Yeah, that's what I was saying, basically.
Exactly. All right, let's see. So it's so good for Joe right now that there's this piece in the National Review that says, "Are Democrats laying the groundwork to ditch Biden in 2024?" To which I will respond, the second we noticed major news services covering stories that they were previously covering up, like the Hunter Biden laptop, for instance, there's your answer.
Yep.
It's like a secret memo went out and said, okay, this horse has got no legs. This is not going to work. we need to figure a way out of this mess because this man is not going to prevail. A wet paper bag has a better chance of winning than Joe Biden if it just says it's the economy, stupid, on the bag.
Now, I have a question for you, Harry.
Okay.
Do you think they can talk him out of running?
I think they can make it so he doesn't win the primary.
I think they can make him think that he's
You
running.
think they'll primary him?
I think they'd have to.
Mm,
Well, if they're going to lose anyway, what's the point? What's the difference?
yeah.
And unless they want to do some kind of takedown of the old regime where they show like, hey, we're taking down the corrupt guy on our own party. That's about the only real advantage I see there.
My point, my reaction to the primary idea is that you would be handing the Republicans an electoral weapon. They're going to get up there and say, look, the Democrats are so bad, they're so divided, they're such a mess that they're primarying their own incumbent. This hasn't happened since Coolidge or whenever, and that would be a very powerful, idea to use against the Dems by the Republicans. That would be, man, if they primary him, they are just done.
Well, this is a special circumstance because of the health issues. If it was just about performance, I would agree with you, but they have an excuse. Go ahead, Serenity.
He's been a good performer, yeah.
Well, I was about to say, to me, it's almost as bad as still having him run to try to act like he didn't do, bad stuff didn't happen under his watch. To me, that's just as bad because it's like the Republicans can literally go, look at all this shit he did. Are the Democrats just going to play stupid? I think they're damned if they do, damned if they don't. I think that's one of these situations in all seriousness.
Well, they've gotten a lot of mileage out of, well, if you don't vote for us, Trump wins. And right now, that's possibly who's going to run. If Trump wants to run, I think he's probably got it. The only thing that I see stopping him, well, the only things would be his health, because he's not exactly young.
Yeah.
Or potentially somebody running who he thinks satisfies the requirements, like DeSantis. Because I think as long as as he feels the country is in good hands, he will be happy not to run.
I'm gonna hope DeSantis, because and this is my own opinion, and I know there's going to be a bunch of people in chat here and who don't agree with me. There's a lot of stuff DeSantis doing that's just whiny. That he's doing the same thing the left does. Oh, you don't agree with me? Screw you. You lose everything. Goodbye.
Well, we actually have a good DeSantis piece later.
Okay, then I will shut up.
No, it's okay. I mean, he does do a lot of things right. I'm just keeping an open mind about DeSantis. I'm not a booster for him or anything like that. I'm sticking with my alt-centrist roots here.
Same. It's some of his stuff, he just acts a little bit like a brat sometimes to me, but that's me.
There's two things that I'd like to point out in relation to this. One is, if the Democrats are looking at fielding people like Gavin Newsom, they're going to have a real tough time.
They're dumb if they do that.
He's got fantastic hair, though.
Oh yeah.
Oh
yeah.
boy, so does Trudeau.
Yeah. And then the second thing is that I am in some discords where we've talked a little bit about Trump, and there's a lot of people who aren't as enthusiastic about him this time around, partially because he keeps it's partially due to stuff like what happened at the NRA I guess re-election hearing or whatever it was, where they end up voting in the one guy again along with a few others, where Trump apparently gave a few endorsements to different people. A lot of people were not thrilled about some of the endorsements he gave out. So the people who are paying attention are not exactly very happy, but we'll see how it goes.
Hi, Cryptic. Everybody say hi to Cryptic.
Hey, Cryptic.
Hi, Cryptic.
Hello.
The thing is, I don't really care about the endorsement stuff because people can be wrong about the endorsements. I care about what he says he's going to do and if he does anything.
Yeah.
That's my stance. It's like if you're going to judge a presidential candidate on their endorsements, unless they're endorsing a Nazi or a racist, like actual Nazis or racists, not just air quotes,
Yeah.
then it's like, but beyond that, I don't care. I don't pay attention to anybody he endorses because I don't care.
Well, in the interest of making sure
Sorry.
we don't take too much time from Sora, I want to move on to
Fuck
the
you,
next thing
Sora.
because you know what we are going to be. We're
Well,
going to be
with
talking
that-
about how much Biden sucks for a long time.
Well, I mean,
So-
Carter's got to be happy.
Let's just put a pin in this. Well, yeah, I don't know what Carter's mind is like at this point.
His family's got to be
Apple
happy about it.
sauce.
I mean, he's done a lot more good as a former president than he ever did as president by
Absolutely.
a lot.
I mean, Habitat for Humanity is amazing.
Well, like
Okay,
one of the
somebody's worked for
the
it.
things that Carter was involved with, it isn't all just sort of flashy, stupid stuff.
Yeah.
He and his group went into parts of Africa where people were going blind
Mhm.
because of waterborne parasites.
Yep.
And you know, all you have to do to prevent people from being infected with these is run. You don't need a fancy filter. You just run it through a fine mesh.
Yep.
Yeah.
All you got to do is pour the water through this fine mesh. It catches the eggs. People don't get the disease, and they don't. It's like river blindness or one of those things. But you literally have worms crawling around in people's eyes. It's disgusting. It's terrible.
Oh.
You know what else he's advocated for the dispensation of is ivermectin.
No,
for,
Carter has done some.
river fever.
Yeah, he's done some good, simple, basic things. I'm not saying that he's a saint or anything, but as a former president, he's done a much better job than he actually did as president. Because as president,
God, yes.
all he did was make bad problems worse.
Yes,
Agreed.
exactly right.
But it's very Biden-esque. I mean, the history books will show pictures of these two presidents next to each other forever.
And just the letters of WTF.
When people are studying the years, basically the modern American era from 1980 to 2020, you're going to see the pictures of Biden and Carter next to each other
Yeah.
for hundreds of years, assuming
In the
that we're all
sewer.
still here. Yeah. All right. So Sora, I think
Yes.
Canadian YouTubers on Bill C11. Did you actually want me to play this video or
Oh no,
just use this as a jumping off point?
we can use this jumping off point. That's not necessary for.
Well,
for
why
that
don't you
one,
tell
but-
us why C11 sucks
Yeah, sorry.
and what it is, first of all?
So, I'll start at the beginning with we have a law here, basically from it. It's from the 70s, but the point system was started in the 80s. That basically, from the Ministry of Canadian Heritage, it was set up with the Canadian broadcasting regulatory body that we have to promote Canadian content. And now this is, of course, back in the day where it is broadcasted content. So you are looking at TV and radio media, and then, of course, film. So it was a way to promote and pay for and helps to fund, Canadian productions. And in the 80s, so that started in the 70s. In the 80s, they got this point system where to be considered to qualify as Canadian content or CanCon, you had to satisfy checklists, sort of like a point system for immigration. You get 2 points if your director is Canadian. You get 5 points if it's produced in Canada. You get an additional 3 points if it's filmed on a Canadian location, et cetera, et cetera. But it's a very weirdly strict system where there's a lot of media that should fall under it but doesn't get qualified for it. All of that is, but regardless of all that, all of this is traditional media, what we call now traditional media. So what's untraditional media? Streaming, apps like TikTok and YouTube, all of these things are now new media, where you have an individual who is not backed by a production team, by a manager, by anything like that, who is able to film themselves and broadcast themselves on a platform and get money for it. So, of course, what is this bill that's coming in? It's basically wanting to amend and update our CanCon laws. So what it covers. So essentially, it wants to. The idea is good. It's saying that we want to promote more Canadian, our Canadian citizens to have more eyeballs on Canadian content creators. How they are wanting to do this is to force YouTube and TikTok, these are like the big ones, to basically stuff Canadian content down your throat. So if you are in Canada, if you have an account in Canada, you're suddenly screw the algorithm, screw what you like to watch, what you've habitually liked and disliked. You're suddenly going to get an influx if this passes. It's in second reading, an influx of all these Canadian content in your feed. And so what happens if you don't like it, if you're not interested in the thing, you're going to dislike it, you're going to ask YouTube to stop recommending the channel, which means that they're going to the algorithm is going to start saying, oh, you don't like this content, okay, I'm going to stop showing it to you. And all of these content creators are going to lose revenue that they used to have on their own without any problem. YouTube also sort of in to fight, because it's the corporation, YouTube is against this, of course, because you don't get to tell me what to do, kind of thing. But
Well, they want to suggest their things for their reasons.
Their big thing they're saying that is bad for Bill C-11 to go through is that a good chunk of viewers of Canadian YouTube channels, for example, come from overseas. So you risk losing this revenue. What Canada is trying to do is basically force these people to fit in the mold of traditional media, traditional broadcast media. So they're trying to make it, so that's what the frame. But problem is that, okay, you're saying, well, as a Canadian YouTuber where I am making short films in my basement, I'm going to be supported by Canada. So what comes with being qualified as a Canadian content is you can apply for media fund. So, like a bursary, scholarships, etc., that give you money to make your project. Well, think again, because you need to qualify through that point system that I mentioned a bit earlier to qualify to get any sort of money. So that means that you're under the mercy of what Canada deems to be Canadian content, which can change at any point. So in other words, it's if you want to go down that rabbit hole, it can be seen as censorship, because it's basically you either conform to what we consider Canadian content and only film this, and then you'd be considered a Canadian content creator. So you'll be seen by more eyeballs, or you'll be allowed to apply for media grants, or don't do anything at all and good luck. But because now that we have this law in place, YouTube is, they're going to be forced to shove your channel down people's throats, but you're going to probably be seen less and less. And that's going to have a huge impact on smaller independent channels. Something like this is great if you have a media company, so you're making you want to make a TV show, for example, because you're going to be filming in the country. You get tax credits, etc. But for something like this, it'll be very difficult for people. Another thing why I think they're doing this is Netflix. When streaming services started, specifically Netflix, at one point they were picking up shows. So if they liked a small web series, they would pick it up to produce it into an actual series, right? Without having to go through the Canadian government necessarily. So they were kind of bypassing the middleman and promoting that, because these guys were not necessarily considered Canadian content because they were streaming on the internet. That was not part of the original traditional media.
I have a dumb question.
Yeah.
I think it's a dumb question. So this is really just about who gets promoted in the algorithm for Canadian viewers, as I understand it. So if I subscribe to some channel, I'm Canadian for the sake of this question, and I subscribe to 10 channels, many of which are not part of the Canadian approved list, I would still see those things show up in my subscription feed, right? just the chance of trying, just it would be almost impossible for
So-
those channels to grow because YouTube would essentially suppress any growth of those channels
Yeah.
for other Canadians.
So, for example, you will see it because you've subscribed, and hopefully, you've done all the things that you're supposed to. You rang the bell, you said all notifications, you've subscribed, whatever the nonsense you have to do now for YouTube. But we already know that doesn't help for how it is now. But if you are a Canadian person and you're wanting to see somebody who doesn't align with what the CRTC wants, so that's the Canadian and radio. They're our censorship, basically. The CRTC is the censor. If it doesn't align with that, it's not considered Canadian content at all. So you might not. They will be suppressed in the algorithm. It'll be like almost a shadow ban, I guess, because YouTube is not gonna. If they're gonna look at it as dollar signs, right? If Canada is saying we want you to only push, or 20% of the time, or 30% of the time, or whatever, we want you to just push Canadian content that we have given a check mark to. Well, they're not going to. They know that whatever ad revenue they're going to get from that, it's going to be a lot smaller than what they used to, because prior to this, any ad revenue would be on an international scale. Now it's going to be whatever Canadian viewer is going to see that amount, or see that video or whatever. So it's going to greatly diminish. They're not going to be interested in promoting Canadian content after that.
So
Because
why
why
are you
would
guys
they?
being so French?
I don't know.
Because this sounds like the article from last week where Skep was talking about the committee to preserve the French language that's been around for a few hundred years. So, you have to talk about video games using only French words.
Yeah.
Well, I have to wonder something. So one of the things that
Hi, Jenna.
people,
Hi.
hi Jenna,
Hi, Jenna.
Hi.
people-
We're talking about how dumb Canada is right now. We'll get to you in a moment.
the thing with YouTube is like, because I remember during the first or second apocalypse, there's things called MCNs, which are multi-channel networks.
Yeah.
Like, I wonder if there's a loophole there. Like, if the MCN is based in Canada, they could have the MCN claim to be, and then they wouldn't have to.
No, unless they qualify under CanCon.
Okay. So if they somehow got it to go
you
through
need
for that.
you have to click through. So, and they're gonna have to make a YouTube streaming service. Okay. So, for example, here is from the Canadian Radio, so the CRTC, the Canadian Radio, Television and Telecommunications Commission. I will link it in the YouTube chat. They show what does the point system look like, okay? So, you get key creative position for live action productions. They show here. You get 2 points if you have a Canadian director. A Canadian screenwriter gets 2 more points. First and second lead performers, or in live or voice, 1 point each, etc., etc. You go down that road. How would a managing team, unless you say the multi-channel network is a derivative of Bell Media, for example, or TELUS, so the big conglomerate media.
So it'd have to be an
companies
offshoot of an offshoot, almost.
Yeah. So the way I see the way that would work, but in the end, it's still going to be, I don't see that being very positive for the small creator necessarily. If you want to be, what's the term? If you don't want to be censored, if you want to have an uncensored script or whatever, you're not going to get that if you work for Bell Media. It's like.
It's not so much censoring as throttling.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it'll be censored in the sense that here's the script I want to say, or I want to talk about this. I feel negatively towards this bill being passed. If you want to remain as part of our management team, I would highly suggest you scrap this video.
Yeah, there's going to be some not so subtle pressure to comply.
Yeah. So
Well, that sounds terrible, Sora.
and I mean, I don't want that. Like, do I want Canadian content creators to be popular? Sure, that's what all your social media is for. That's what the algorithm is for, because the current algorithm is, oh, you like a certain amount of stuff, oh great, here's more things that you might be interested in. Is it broken? 100%, because I have it suggest things to me of, I have no idea what I could have possibly watched for you to suggest this to me, but whatever. That's how you find things,
Sora,
But-
it literally sounds like state run
Yes.
TV.
because it is.
Well, that's
Uh,
not.
The Canadian content thing is that's the whole thing. It pushes, you have to play a certain amount of Canadian artists on the radio. You have to broadcast Canadian made stuff on TV for children and adults. It's a way to, they implemented this in the 70s as a way to to help Canadians be competitive, because they're being, I guess, drowned out internationally or in Canada themselves. People were more interested in international media, so you have to. It was a way. It's through the cultural heritage ministry, right? So it's a way to preserve Canadian media culture. But the thing is, with many laws like this, technology and the internet has evolved so quickly that it's gone beyond what the laws are in place and how things are. I guess
It sounds like the
perceived,
beginning
organized.
of China.
Yeah, it is very China-like, but it's really more France than China. I
Yeah.
wasn't kidding when I said, why are you being so French, Canada? Because it sounds like this very much a French type of
We
response
started
to
French.
things.
It has the same flavor as the French.
It has a certain je ne sais quoi that's very Quebecois.
A certain smell of the fromage.
Yes.
The biggest thing too is, I mean, if you're an independent creator and you also know that your videos are being pushed because of an algorithm, but not necessarily because people are finding you organically, I don't know how that would make you feel as well. I feel like some people would be perfectly okay with that, but other people might be kind of dejecting to the point where they may not want to create content.
Well, speaking for the
the
minions,
thing-
I think we know what it's like we know what it feels like when YouTube is not that into you.
Yeah.
Because we're
But
here because YouTube went out of their way to be pissed off at the minions. So anyway, go on, Sora.
Well, I also think it's kind of awesome to, I'm going to assume, right, as someone who makes content, if you look in your analytics page and you see, 25% of people watch you from the US, 18% watches you from Gibraltar. I don't know. You have a breakdown of who watches you and where you struck a nerve. It's kind of cool. I would think to see that a good chunk of people are international. If you see that 90% is Canadian and then the rest is squashed down, and you know for certain that your views are low, well, I would think that hey, am I ghost banned? What's going on? So no, what it is that you're being pushed to Canadians only, our citizen, the whole country. The amount of citizens are small compared to other places. So that means, and of those people, you could, I'm sure that if you're good with numbers, you can start breaking it down into statistics and stuff like that. But it's not a good idea. It really isn't. Apparently, Bill C-10, which was struck down. It was the one before this, or I don't know if it was struck down, but it definitely put on hold or whatever. It was worse than what C-11 is. This is the current cultural heritage minister, who's Argentinian, by the way, not Canadian. Says an immigrant. I'm sorry if he came to the country as a young boy, pardon me. But it just, Argentinian taking care of our cultural heritage. But anyway, so he's basically cleaned up a lot of. There was some issues with some of the language, but the core, which is this taking control of Canadian streaming, that's still in place from C10. So that's that's a danger. You know how we see how everyone complains that YouTube became corporate and suddenly you've got like the Today Show or the Tonight Show or whatever those talk show hosts there being like the #1 channels or whatever, and it's stupid because like since when?
Yeah.
That's basically what's going to happen under Bill C11 possibly. So you're taking all the pre-approved Canadian content, which would be clip shows of Canadian already traditional Canadian broadcasting stuff put out there, and that's what's going to be pushed, not individual creators.
Hey kids, you know what's cool? Staying home and wearing masks. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, that's in a spiel. I hope that makes sense. It's for me. It took just trying to figure out, like, understand all of this is it's quite. You have to keep opening more tabs and more tabs. Wait, what's this? What's this? What's this? You know.
Yeah.
Sorry if you hear noise in the background. It's my dog scraping her dish.
These things happen. Hi Jenna.
Hi.
How you doing today?
Okay. How
You
are
hanging
you?
in there? Yeah, we're doing all right. It's been hot here in California, and we're not really equipped to deal with it. So it was
What do you think? California gets to 110 degrees.
not the coastal parts, not usually.
Oh yeah, you've told me about this.
Yeah, so just eat ice cream, stay indoors, wear a mask, be cool.
I recommend
Let's see. So I think we need a break because that was C11 sounds like hot garbage.
It sounds like
So
communism.
it does
We
sound
need,
like
we need some
communism.
happiness, Harry.
We need some happiness. Okay, so let's see. Let's get rid of that. Hey, let's take a look at this. Maybe this will amuse you.
Well, a strange
Nice
creature has been
teeth.
spotted outside the Amarillo Zoo, and it's not an animal. It's not exactly a human. Take a look. Security cameras
It's
captured
Skep.
what appears to be a wolf
Damn
man
it.
walking around the property. City officials say this image is real, and they're baffled by its mysterious appearance. So now they're asking for the public's input to figure out what the heck is it. Some have suggested it could be chupacabra, that this mythical beast-like predator that's become an urban legend.
Okay, it's not chupacabra. I'm
No,
not
well,
sure
what
what
is
it
it?
is.
Furry
but
going
I'm
home
telling
from
you,
a fur convention.
I'm lost.
Did they just call it the the Egyptian wolf head god?
Anubis?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
No.
I
they
mean,
called it
that would
chupacabra.
be, of all the things it could be, that might be the worst.
For some reason, I thought I heard that.
Why are they calling it a wolf man? Do they know how this creature identifies?
That's true. I don't see any secondary sex characteristics that would.
It might be species fluid.
I'm liking the furry convention explanation. It's
Yeah.
kind of funny. So something weird shows up on a place where any reasonable person would expect cameras, and then the first guess you go to is chupacabra.
What's chupacabra?
It's the goat eater. It's this thing here. That's a chupacabra.
They keep them in the Amarillo Zoo.
They serve them at the wet markets in
China. China.
that's where
Wuhan.
the monkeypox came from.
Why?
The
I
cowbell
don't know.
pox.
I just wanted to talk about literally just something that was completely unimportant, and there's almost nothing less important than this right there.
That's a person, right?
Almost certainly, given that it's a biped.
It's actually if you really want to know what that is, that's probably a person with something called an artifact type of thing. Either that or it's somebody who put on some sort of headdress or something, to exactly stage this.
Oh yeah, you can see it.
The funny
Isn't
thing to
that-
me is that the news people gave it even the level of seriousness that they did. I don't think they should even be covering this. And the words chupacabra should have never even entered into the conversation.
No, the adults are children these days.
Yeah, but I think the furry explanation makes more sense than anything. It's just somebody acting out. Look, Mom on
Oh my
TV.
goodness. I know
Alright.
who it is.
You do?
Yes.
Who is it?
Don't say.
I will tell you later.
Yes, I already know. I have a suspicion of what you're going to say. And no. Okay, moving on.
I wasn't going to out you.
It's not me. So speaking of terrible things, life
Oh,
on Larry
fuck.
Ellison's Hawaiian Island is so expensive, only the super rich could afford it. So Larry Ellison basically bought the island of Lanai. He owns 98% of a small Hawaiian island. Now, if I recall correctly, wasn't that the one that was natives only for the longest time?
Yes, it was.
And it really wasn't possible to buy property there unless you
Had to
unless you
jump
were born
through
there.
impossible hoops.
Apparently, he managed to find enough money to grease the skids to do this. So he ended up buying this 10 years ago. He paid $300 million for the island's 90,000 acres, which includes 2 four-season resorts that provide most of the jobs, homes, and commercial properties for the approximately 3,000 local residents. The Bronx-born Ellison, who I know Skep loves because you love Oracle products so much, who built Oracle into a
his company.
into a $200 billion behemoth, developed the area to the point where small business owners and other working class residents have been priced out, according to Bloomberg. Shortly after buying the island, he built a Nobu, a high-end Japanese restaurant where the dinner for two could easily exceed $1,000. Sorry, you agree. Having a Nobu, I mean, if you're going to buy an island, you're going to want a Nobu, right?
100%.
100%. I don't. That's probably the sanest thing he's done so far. So they
I'd
give
want
this.
a narwhal.
They give this little story about this one guy, Chris Andrews, who helped his friend Peter Franklin start up a business called Lanai Woodworkers, told Bloomberg that the company aided in building the restaurant. So far, guess what? He's building jobs. But Ellison also bought the building where Lanai Woodworkers rented space. Ellison's representatives told Franklin that he would either have to clear out or sell the business to the tech mogul, according to Bloomberg. Franklin sold the business to Ellison, who promised him a job, but Andrews was out of luck. At age 64, he was unemployed, so he decided to get a job delivering newspapers. And you think, okay, he's adapted. Everything's fine.
Larry's not done screwing him
But
yet,
the hotels that Ellison bought canceled their newspaper subscriptions, which cut Andrews's business in half, according to
my
Bloomberg.
God.
This is such a sob story. I know it's true and it's horrible for this one guy, but this sob story is amazing. Instead, the hotels started using iPads for their guests, and they didn't need hard copies of newspapers delivered to the rooms anymore.
And I bet you the way he spun that is that they are now green. It's a new green initiative.
Exactly. Well, you don't
You know.
have a lot of paper mills on Lanai. After the business dried up, Andrews said he fell behind on his utility bills. In January, Ellison's holding company terminated his rental agreement. He's now relying on aid from Catholic charities to help him pay rent at his home. So, rich douchebag buys island, gentrifies the hell out of it. But ultimately, he needs people to actually work at these businesses he's created.
Yeah.
And it's not like the staff is going to get in one of those traditional canoes, and it's going to be like the beginning of Hawaii 5-0, where they're all just going to row their way to Lanai for work every day. It seems like it's an unworkable solution for everybody to basically make it so that you need workers for businesses you've built, but nobody can afford to live close enough to your businesses to actually work in them.
Yeah.
I don't
Wait.
see this as an equilibrium situation. I would think something would have to happen.
He's counting on Catholic charities to pay.
This individual is counting on Catholic charities to pay his rent.
Not the island owner.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I'm
the
just-
point of Rich Douchebag Does What is actually sort of the next article, which is how America's richest people can access billions without selling their stocks. Larry Ellison famously doesn't get paid anything by Oracle. He doesn't get a salary of any consequence. So even though he's one of the richest people in the world, he doesn't have any taxable income to tax.
I'm only as valuable as my company.
Yeah. So how is it that rich douchebag who has no income is able to just run around buying up islands? Because sounds like chump change, but if you have no income and all you have is stock, well, what happens? Well, the way this works is very, very rich people get extremely good treatment from banks. And what they do is they essentially get loans against the securities that they own, against the stocks, for instance. Now, that doesn't constitute a sale, so they don't have to pay any tax on it. Then they use the money that they've...
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. You're going to say something.
Neither does it constitute margining the stock. You don't have to have a hypothecation agreement to do it the way that they do it, because those are all done as private transactions between him and the bank.
Mm-hmm.
The bank is basically saying to him, this is not a deal like when you would come into Merrill Lynch and I, as a stockbroker, would say, okay, you can borrow up to 50% of your, the value of your stocks if you sign a hypothecation agreement, and you can trade on margin. And so you can make money faster and lose money faster.
Yeah, I have a margin agreement.
Yeah, exactly.
But that doesn't mean that I can take a bunch of stocks and just sort of with a wink and a nod with my friendly banker.
Yeah.
For extremely good rates. This is completely different. This is something that only the very, very, very rich can get away with.
Exactly.
So guys like Larry Ellison do not pay taxes like the rest of us folks. And this is why Elizabeth Warren and those people have been talking about essentially a wealth tax, because we got to make sure those millionaires pay their fair share.
She's a millionaire.
Or, sorry, billionaires. So I was thinking about this, and I think I have a better idea than Elizabeth Warren's idea. It didn't take particularly long. I think the best thing they could do in these situations is we probably do need to actually do something. And this is why I'm not like 100% hard right all the time. I actually am a centrist, because I really do think this is kind of an issue. Because these people push these loans, they keep kicking the can down the road until essentially they're dead and they don't care anymore. And then their estate just deals with whatever's left over. But the idea of somebody like Larry Ellison paying no taxes is kind of dumb. Elon, they called him on it. He said, well, how much do you want me to sell? Do you want me to sell like $100 million? So he just did it. And then he ended up with the biggest tax bill in history. But he just did it because he's not trying to work the system. That's just sort of how it works out. Elon's so busy doing things that he doesn't have time to run around buying islands and being a complete douchebag like Larry Ellison. Elon's too busy to be this annoying. so
in fairness, they are at different stages in their billionaire-ness.
Yes.
Elon is much earlier. He's in his, earn, learn, and burn years. Okay. And Larry is more or less, a retired billionaire. I mean, largely. And he's just playing.
He's in the advanced windsurfing phase of his career.
Yeah, exactly. He's in the John Kerry phase. Yes, exactly.
Go ahead, Jenna, and then I'm going to tell you what my stupid idea is.
Because he takes out these so-called loans with a wink and a handshake, there's no tax on them.
Correct.
So,
he's able to use that money without paying 1 cent of tax.
And because they're in stocks or bonds or whatever, does he have to pay taxes on those?
No, only when he sells them.
So only the income that is going through, say, his bank account is what he pays taxes on?
He would pay taxes on whatever interest was in his sweep account for the money that he'd borrowed on these things. But it's inconsequential. So essentially, he gets to live the rock star lifestyle, the billionaire lifestyle, and not pay taxes. And Larry Ellison is famous for it. He's famous for it.
I have a huge issue with that.
Well, I also have a huge issue with the idea of a wealth tax, because saying, oh, well, your fair share is me taking 1 or 2% of everything you own every year is also not good.
Well, why can't everybody pay 10%
Of what?
taxes of their
No.
income?
10% of what, though? What's the
Yeah.
basis?
10% of their stocks. 10%
Well,
of it.
see, because he has no income, so you see, there's nothing to take 10% of, unless you do what Elizabeth Warren says, and for everybody who has more than umpteen $1 billion, we're going to take 1% of everything they own every year.
And
Well, that's
fair.
not to defend the billionaire, but that's not fair. And life isn't fair, but
But how is
if
taking
he has
10% fair?
no income, but if he's taken, then his loan should be. I don't know. What's your
Well, it's because
idea?
he's incredibly rich. What they should do is they should come up with a rule for these situations where, if you are, what's the name of somebody rich? You're Scrooge McDuck.
There you go.
And you sell, and you have a particular property that you purchased for $10 million. It's now worth $200 million. You take out a loan for $100 million against that.
Mm-hmm.
What you do is you treat $80 million of that as income, and you adjust what's called the basis of the property after that. And there actually are circumstances where this could even be advantageous, because I think that borrowing money in excess of what you've invested into this thing is essentially realizing the gain on that investment. And I think that can be treated as income, but you adjust the basis so you don't pay taxes on it twice. So Scrooge McDuck pays the capital gains tax on the, what did I say, $80 million, right? But then when they go to sell that thing later, they treat it as if it was purchased for $100 million, so you don't get taxed twice. And this satisfies all the requirements. The douchebag billionaire pays his taxes because he's effectively taking income. It's just not really treated as income. And we're not essentially depleting a little chunk of what everybody owns every single year, because that lets people build wealth by not having to sell portions of their plumbing company and other things. Because don't think for a second it's only going to be Larry Ellison that has to deal with this crap. That's my thought. What do you think, Scap?
I think it would work.
I think it'd be pretty hard to enforce. And the other thing is about billionaires. They have armies of attorneys and accountants who will march in there and do it. They can come up with some magnificent ways to avoid this. And then finally, the last thing is that if you chase the capital out of the country, and you can do that with taxes, it will leave the country. And these days there are many other places that are not the good old U.S. of A. that are perfectly acceptable places to put billions of dollars into and have an expectation of a good return. If capital starts to fly out of America, we really will be in a situation where we will probably restructure. And if we're lucky, we'll only be a Great Britain. If we're not lucky, we could be a Canada.
Well, they only have so much leeway in terms of how they calculate the basis of a property before they sell it. There are accounting rules and stuff. So yeah, they do have armies of attorneys, and I'm sure they will make it as advantageous as possible. But I don't think this is an unsolvable problem, any more so than if you borrow money against your house and you don't use it for certain types of repairs, you can't take the interest on that part of the loan anymore. And that's a much more complicated thing than I'm talking about here.
Harry, how big a problem is this? What is the scale of this problem? What are the expected revenues that you would get from, say, taking 20% or 25% of the wealth of every billionaire in America for every year?
What would happen if we had Liz Warren's wealth tax?
Yeah, basically.
Oh, I mean, capital flight is the main one.
Yeah, and everything else to me is just a smaller anything that. See, here's the thing. People think that when billionaires accumulate billions of dollars, they think, well, they're just spending this on, going out to Nobu every night and baubles and islands and yachts and jets and stuff like that. And they do spend that money on that. It's very flashy and makes a big impression. The important thing about billionaires is that that's an aggregation of capital, usually under the stewardship of somebody who knows what the hell they're doing and how to employ that capital effectively to help grow the economy. So those are people who have a very big responsibility in the stewardship of that money. And most of the time, I think you'll find that they employ that pretty responsibly, even if it's nothing more than putting it in conservative bonds, bankers' acceptance, commercial paper, and conservative mutual funds that and helping to support the lending industry. And when you start talking about large amounts of cash, those guys are very good at that, at helping support the activities of things like bankers' acceptances. Without bankers' acceptances, there's no import-export trade. There's no way to do that, and that's the way that happens. So I'm not big on the state coming in and saying, "Okay, Mr. Billionaire, we think you should have it as tough as we do. We want to put the hurt on you because we've observed your lifestyle and we don't approve of it. So give us 1/5 of your money or whatever, or 1/10 of your money every year, and or else."
That's not what I'm talking about.
Even if it's an unrealized gain.
Well, okay, that's not what I'm talking about. I think as soon as you take something that has gained a lot of value, you borrow money against it with this kind of a deal, in excess of what you put in, you are realizing a gain. You're reaping the benefits of the work that you've done. I'm not saying you should lose some percentage of everything you own. I'm simply saying that if you essentially, for all intents and purposes, cash out part of what you've made, that you've gained, you should pay taxes on that portion of it and adjust the basis accordingly. Now, there actually could be tax advantages in some circumstances for doing this.
Yeah.
Because it would allow them to actually draw down some of this stuff and amortize the gain over time. But we're not going to talk about that because I think I've already tried everybody's patience enough with this particular topic.
One more
but you know what I'm talking. Hold on. But you know what I'm talking about, Skep, right?
Yeah, I do understand.
And I'm totally opposed to wealth taxes because if you don't touch it, you should not pay taxes on it. But if you're taking hundreds of millions of dollars out and buying islands and saying, "Oh, but look at me, I don't have any income," it's like, well, screw you. That's sort of my line. And it isn't so much about a value thing, because I even said capital gains. I'm not even treating it as ordinary income.
And that's the other thing is I would get rid of the capital gains tax. It's insane. Almost no country in Europe has as high a capital gains tax as we have.
It should be low.
Insane.
It should be damn low. All right. Let's see. Where are we? What were you going to say, Jenna? Really quickly.
Well, because he has the resorts and the restaurant, doesn't that count as income?
Well, that's where that team of accountants Skep was talking about come in. You'd be surprised with a network of businesses how easily you can hide profits.
Yeah, he actually has to be
you are
claimed as
correct.
an employee or employer before he can take.
Well, no. He, as an owner, he's still going to get distributions. Depending on how these things are organized, he may still end up seeing income from them.
Yeah, but if, like you said, if the team of lawyers and accountants do their job right, it's done in such a way that doesn't happen.
But it's nothing compared to his big fat Oracle bucks.
Oh, yeah. No, nothing even close.
All right.
But it's paying his fair share of what he's earning.
Well, I hate the idea of fair share. The point is, he shouldn't
long
be.
Discussion.
We don't want to. What I don't want to see is vastly unequal treatment based upon class. There
Oh, no.
probably has to be some way to make it so that people are being treated the same way under the law. I think this is a loophole which probably needs some amount of attention given to.
I meant getting taxed for the resorts and the restaurant.
Oh, he'll get, if they turn a profit, he'll pay
That's
tax on it.
fair share. He
But he's
gets
not the one
taxed
getting-
like anyone else with a restaurant or a resort.
Kind of, but it's the business itself that gets taxed, not him.
Well, both do.
But yeah, but still, it's like mostly the lawyers work to make sure the business gets taxed, not him, or at least done in a certain way. It's like it's more. It comes down to how much the business pays out than him. So there's, once again, it's the question of what is fair share, and that's like Skep said and Harry said, that's a conversation for another day.
Yeah, we could spend hours talking about that, and I don't think anybody wants to do that. So let me move on to the next thing. Let's see. We'll just make this go away, and let's see what comes up. A copy of Shakespeare's first folio worth up to £2 million to go up for auction.
I was fascinated by this.
Are you going to bid?
I wish I could. If I had the money, I'd do it.
If we all donated
I'll
$1.
chip in.
It's missing the frontispiece that has the portrait of Shakespeare, which all the first folios had. Here's the thing about this: there are no extant manuscripts from Shakespeare. There were no contemporaneous manuscripts that survived. These first folios, I think there's 20 or 30 of them, something like that, are the only reason we have his plays. That's why we have his plays, are these first folios. This is one of those that was printed 400 years ago. The cool thing about this is if you look in there, like the first words of Hamlet, I'm trying to I actually have this here. I was going to read it. There it is. Okay. The back then, the printers had things called cliches, and the cliches were phrases that you might think of it as, this is hard coding. They would put each letter was a block, and they would line up the blocks together so it made a phrase. So they could quickly, when someone wanted to use a common phrase, they could just grab the cliche. That's where the word cliche comes from, is from this grouping of commonly used common expression. And what this led to was, when they were printing, they wouldn't want to break up the block of cliches. But sometimes they ran out of popular letters, particularly the letter U. And so they would replace it with a V. And you'll hear a lot of people who say, oh, U and V were, interchangeable. No, they weren't. That those were very distinct letters even 400 years ago. But they would say, hey, we're out of U's. They're all in the cliches, and we have to print this thing. We'll use a V. And you actually see that in the first folio of Hamlet, and it's actually in. I think, isn't it in this article? I think it might even be in this article, Harry.
I don't remember, but I think you've described it. You've described it just fine. Maybe it's buried in another article, but I don't remember that part. But the main thing is, this is cool.
It's awesome.
It is awesome. I mean, these little bits of history. People like things like this. If you have a lot of money, but all you have is a lot of money, that doesn't necessarily mean anything. It doesn't mean that you're a good person. It doesn't tell other people that you're a good person. It just means you're a guy who has a lot of money.
Mm.
Right.
But if you buy something like this, what you're telling the world is, this is how I choose to spend my money, because I'm a good person, because I'm cultured, because I care about important things that other important people care about. It is a way of virtue signaling in a lot of cases. And that's not necessarily such a bad thing. A lot of people do a lot of things for shallow reasons that turn out to be good. A lot of philanthropy is nothing more than people wanting to look like they're good people, that they're one of the good folks, so that people like us don't say nasty things about them like we did about Larry Ellison. So I don't necessarily take issue with this. I think this is really cool. And I think it's a lot cooler than spending, what was that, $160-something million on a car.
Yeah.
Hey, Harry, I found what I wanted to show you. Can
I
just share my screen?
Yeah, go ahead.
From my screen. Hang on.
We're hopelessly behind schedule anyway, so I don't care.
I know. You're awesome. Thank you for letting me do this.
It's not my fault, is it?
It's my fault.
It's just so cool that I wanted to.
I'm the one that wants to talk about taxes and accounting, because that's how much I care about our show. All right.
Numbers are fun.
This is the kind of thing that they printed. And so if you look right here where it says, Antonio says, Long, Liue Gonzalo. That's
Long
because
live.
they were using a U instead of a V. And you see the SAUE. They still didn't have the V, back then. They were all tied up in the cliches. Up right here, you see govern, Gourne. No, that's not the way they spelled it back then. That's the word govern with an E on the end, which was the way that they spelled it. But the U is replacing the V because they were out of V's. And that is where we get the word cliche.
Cool.
I just wanted to share that with you.
That is sweet.
They needed to go to spin the wheel and buy a vowel.
Yep. If only there was an anime that dealt with this topic, right, Serenity?
Yeah.
There probably was.
Yeah. Hooray for the Gutenberg Project, by the way, for letting me download that. So,
yeah, Gutenberg Project is pretty awesome.
It rocks. Yep.
Can I tell you a strange fact about me?
Yes.
Sure.
So
maybe
I'm dyslexic. It was when I was younger, it was easier for me to read Old English Shakespeare than New Age stuff. It made more sense to me in my dyslexic brain.
Weird, Another
huh?
way in which you're an outlier.
Yeah, that iambic pentameter somehow penetrated.
Nothing wrong with being an
Dyslexia.
outlier.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nope.
Got a few on this screen.
Yeah, let's move on to the next thing, as cool as this is. This is sort of cool and not cool. The last Howard Johnson's restaurant in America is officially closed. Well, this has been going on for a very, very long time, because something like a Howard Johnson's is just doesn't really fit in with the modern age. And yeah, the reason I go ahead.
No, go ahead, Harry. I'm sorry.
The reason I wanted to bring this up is because I don't think people really understand Howard Johnson's in context. Back at the end of the Industrial Revolution, before that, people really didn't have things like leisure time. Leisure time was not a thing that people had, nor was it really easy to get up and go places. But as America became more and more prosperous right before World War II, Howard Johnson's was something that was very much in the right place at the right time. It was a place where you could go and have a decent meal for a reasonable price next to these newfangled roadways they were putting in. And people started being able to afford cars. So they had the money for leisure, they had time for leisure, they had the ability to travel, and it formed kind of a perfect synergy for a place like Howard Johnson's. And there's equivalent things that happened in the UK and other countries too. But Howard Johnson's was a pretty big force. And this guy worked his ass off and bootstrapped this thing, and it ended up being covering much of the country by the time it was at its peak. And they would bring in really good chefs to bolster their menus and stuff. People like Jacques Pepin was one of them. Before Howard Johnson's, he was a well-trained chef, and he had this successful venture in New York that basically kind of like the soup Nazi thing that Seinfeld episode is sort of modeled after. But Jacques Pepin realized that you could serve an awful lot of people a really high quality meal if you just limited the menu and made it work. He got picked up by Howard Johnson's and actually modernized a lot of their product line, for the whole chain
and franchise.
Yeah. So he was like a big deal, but this is the kind of stuff that Howard Johnson's did. So to my mind, the thing that kind of makes this happy sad is, it goes away now because the world is a different place. But Howard Johnson's existed because the world was becoming a better place. And it's a really important sort of footnote in history because it signifies America becoming kind of a great modern country where people's lives suddenly got better to the point where you needed something like this.
There were no Denny's and IHOPs and Red Lobsters and things like that that were nationwide franchise chains. Howard Johnson's really was the first one.
Well, the only thing that I can think of that predates this that's similar are the Harvey houses. And the Harvey houses were a similar sort of thing, but they existed at rail stations. Well, they were rail stations in other places too, I think. So the Harvey houses were along the major rail lines in the U.S.
True. Later on, that's true.
Yeah, and so essentially, the Harvey houses are another really there's a movie, I think was The Harvey Girls. I haven't seen it, but I know it exists. But the Harvey houses were really good at hiring young women and providing them a really excellent work condition compared to what a lot of other companies were offering in the time. So it was a very equal opportunity type of thing. Yeah. The Harvey Girls had to be clean, polite, hardworking, punctual, all those sorts of things. It was a real step up back when there weren't a lot of jobs like that for women. And the Harvey houses really made it so that travel by rail became a lot more bearable for people, because even before they had good rail service, dining car type things, the Harvey houses were an integral part of building out the American passenger rail system, because you needed something like this. So that's also significant. But to me, Howard Johnson's is a symbol of American achievement and also just the achievement of modern society. And I'm not sad to see it go, because I mean it's outgrown its usefulness, kind of like Sears did. But it makes me happy that it existed. Sorry, Skep, go ahead.
But Harvey House was the rail, was to rails what Howard Johnson was to automotive travel. I think. Yep. The way I think of it.
Yeah, but Howard Johnson's took it so much further.
Oh man. Yeah. So anyway, we owe him a debt. Also, Howard Johnson, the man, was a very interesting guy. I mean, he took over his father's tobacconist shop when his father died. It was $10,000 in debt, which back in the teens or 20s was a lot of money. This is a guy who, went over, served in World War I in the infantry in France. He was in the ship and came back, worked his ass off at the tobacconist shops, could never get it out of debt. And he started Howard Johnson's, I think, with the idea of getting a business going so he could pay off the creditors of his father's failed tobacconist business.
Yep, and ice cream was the answer.
Yeah, Didn't he pay some guy?
Yeah.
He paid a chef or something to formulate his recipe.
I found a Howard Johnson, but it's only a hotel. It's only a motel.
Sorry if it sounds like I'm under siege. Somebody's apparently using fireworks outside.
Yeah, I have a story on this actually that I got from my parents.
Please.
Apparently, there was a Howard Johnson's kind of near the area where I work now, and they were talking about that when you get off the freeway going basically east to west, you could potentially stop there. It was of course the whole. It was a combination of basically what we now would know as kind of like a restaurant and a hotel. It was a really nice place to stop at. Guess what it is now?
Oh,
Waffle
good.
Hut.
It's
Is it
a homeless
brothel?
shelter.
It's
Oh!
a what?
A
It's a
homeless
what?
shelter.
Oh, great.
Do they still
Yeah.
have ice cream?
That's what they did with the Howard Johnson here.
Yeah, there you
They
go.
turned it into SRO, single occupancy residence.
Homeless
Yep.
Johnson.
Okay, now I'm sad. I would kind of like to see it turn into another business. Is the point?
Yeah.
But
Well,
the economy being a
Taking
thing. now.
homeless people off the street is
You can do
kind
that
of
with a rifle.
important.
Just saying.
it can be. It can be a very good thing. So I have a fun thing. I wouldn't call this necessarily fun. Hey Sora,
Yeah.
I think you might like this. This is a Spanish moon moth.
Very beautiful.
Serenity, are you here?
Yeah.
You're back. I think this
Yeah.
is pretty cool. I mean, I don't even like insects, and I think this is pretty cool.
It
This is
has
the,
4 eyes.
The Spanish moon moth are protected species of silk moth found in the mountainous pine forests of Spain, France, and Switzerland. Their distinctive elongated wing ends, called tails, aid survival by throwing off the echolocation signals of the brown bats that hunt them, because bats suck. So essentially, it's like flashy. It's flashy for us, but stealthy for the bats. That seems like a pretty darn good design. And even I don't hate these things.
They're very pretty, and they look almost like butterflies, which makes people less likely to hurt them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're very beautiful.
You
And
like
nature
this?
sometimes doesn't suck. I mean,
You like
sunfish
the-
suck, but these are good. Sorry, Geodes.
No, I was about to say, you like this, but not sunfish, huh? Okay.
Yeah, sunfish are terrible, and these are actually pretty awesome. It looks like a stained glass window.
Mhm.
Oh, it does.
Yeah.
With 4 eyes.
Well,
Yep.
those are fake eyes, but yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
in the
it's like
front,
a-
there's like compound eyes, and it's not so pretty in that end.
It's also wearing glasses at the front, but yeah.
Yeah, in the Disney
Oh, it
version.
is.
Yes.
But
Mhm.
apparently, the top part of the wing that's purple in that picture can be anything from a pinkish red to a like soft like suede brown to a
Mhm.
purple. So they all kind of have a still variation. The cooler ones are like there's the ones that are red that look a little bit they just look a little bit. It's a very drastic color difference between the green and the red, so it's a very like outstanding thing. But they're very cool animals.
Do you know how you can tell a butterfly from a moth?
How?
Butterflies have antennae that look like golf clubs. Moths have antennae that look like feathers.
Oh,
It's true. That's actually true.
score one for the moths.
There you go.
So that was fun. Now we'll talk about something terrible. It
Yay!
was supposed to be a facility to put addicts in touch with rehab facilities, but we reveal how Drug Swamp San Francisco is in reality operating a secret and illegal drug use site. Yay!
What?
This is actually in the
funny.
Daily
Oh my-
Mail, and
It
one
is
of the
sad
authors
news.
is Michael Schellenberger, who's one of the gubernatorial candidates. He's the independent that I mentioned previously. And he's the co-author of this piece for the Daily Mail. San Francisco said, oh, no, we would never do that because it would be completely wrong for the government to run a place where people could use drugs. So we would never actually do that. But they did their little investigative reporting thing and pretty much revealed, yeah, they set up an area where people could just shoot up and there are city officials just walking around like nothing's wrong here. This is not the rehab facility you were looking for. The purpose of this is ostensibly to connect people who need services with services,
Oh,
not to, why don't you go shoot up over there in the corner? And London Breed, who's the mayor of San Francisco, who we'll mention again in a bit, they all will disavow that
Wait,
any of this is going
London's-
on, but the evidence is here.
Their
The
name's
pictures
London
are
Breed.
here. London
Jenna.
Breed is the mayor of San Francisco.
Is that on Market Street? Is that Market Street right
Probably.
there?
United Nations Plaza, so yeah.
Yeah. Shit.
Yeah. Let's
The
just
city is gone.
come shoot up
I-
on
I-
the city's time.
To be completely fair, I think
It
San
was a
Francisco was bought
beautiful
while
city.
ago.
Well, they did recently recall their DA.
Yeah,
This
who has
is
ties
absolutely
to
huge.
some bullshit.
Yeah, so Chesa Boudin is actually the child of 2 domestic terrorists who were sentenced to decades in jail for bank robbery.
Yeah, that 2 Brinks drivers and Brinks guard died. Like
so his progressive whack job pedigree is very, very strong.
Yeah.
You're raised by Bill Ayers.
Yeah, this is not the kind of person you want in the government. So he was actually voted out of office by 60% of the vote in liberal San Francisco. That's how bad the guy is.
Those are Democrats voting him out. The last Republican in San Francisco left years ago.
Yeah.
These were Democrats who voted this asshole out.
That says 41, a former public defender. He narrowly won office in November 2019 with a platform promising to seek alternatives to incarceration in the racist war on drugs and hold police officers accountable. Reducing incarceration rates was a personal issue because his parents are trash. But over the past 2 years in San Francisco, brazen shoplifting, car break-ins, drug dealing, home burglaries, and attacks against Asian American residents left black guys for douchebag DA. Things have been going incredibly poorly in San Francisco. He banned his prosecutors from seeking cash bail, putting juveniles on trial as adults, and seeking longer sentences for perpetrators with gang affiliations. So it's very much the same kind of nonsense that's going on in LA still. The only difference being that LA hasn't recalled Gaston yet, and they really need to.
Yes, they do.
He needs to go before LA is destroyed too. Now,
these guys have an attitude that it's time for the upper classes, the white collar folk, the upper middle class, to suffer the way they perceive the lower classes suffer. I really believe that this is about wrecking society. I despise these guys.
Yeah. Well, these people are terrible. Go ahead.
I have to find it again, but apparently there's maps that shows Bowden's preferential treatment, which those got out, which is part of what supposedly helps tip it. But like there's a push for recalling Gascon because there's websites everywhere.
So what are these maps? I haven't heard about these maps.
Well, they're crime maps, basically showing that what the crime rates didn't actually really change in the bad parts. It was just, and they spent more money trying to protect the good parts, which of course there's a little bit of a racial divide. So for all his talk of being fair, he basically pulled the crap that a lot of people pull, which is our crime rates are down. Well, of course your crime rates are going to look down if you're not prosecuting anybody, jackass.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, I talk shit about social media, and so do a lot of other people, so I'm not only throwing myself under the bus here. But social media does help with this because it makes it harder for them to say, but the numbers are down. And people will be like, I just saw it, like 7 people I know on Facebook in 2 days say they got robbed. What the F are you talking about? So it's one of those things where it's like, this is kind of the stuff where social media helps. But I think Gascon's also getting sued by his own lawyers, or was getting sued.
Well, that is the next thing. Appeals court orders LA County DA Gascon to enforce 3 strikes and special circumstances. His own district attorneys, his own assistant DAs, took him to court to basically force him to do his job in terms of actually seeking the sentences that the law requires.
I'm stuck on the fact that his name is actually Gaston.
No, it is. Nobody lies like Gascon. Nobody sucks like Gascon. Nobody is a shitty DA like Gascon. He is absolutely terrible. Are you trying to serve? You're trying to share something, Skep?
Yeah, this is a comparison between Boudin and Gascon. If you look at this, if you can embiggen me.
Yep.
That's Gascon's record versus Boudin's as to how they treat crime. They're very, very similar.
Yeah.
They just basically let assault and battery just go.
And they both need to leave. 1 down, 1 to go.
Yep. I just wanted to flash that up there and show you that these 2 guys are peas in the pod. That's what I want to show, Harry.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Was it in LA or San Francisco of the guy that robbed the Walgreens or CVS 37 times
That was in San Francisco.
Being caught 37 times, but robbed it a lot more.
Yeah, well, they have like a express checkout at the jail at a certain point. They just punch your card and send you on your way. I like it when they pick up the same people for the same crime multiple times in a day. That happened in L.A. One time that we talked about previously. Yeah.
I should just run the world.
Yeah. Well, okay. Enough of Gascon. Let's see. In Washington State, they basically said that police can't chase cops or can't chase drivers that try to get away. So now people just aren't stopping.
I'm sorry, what?
The law enforcement agency said it logged between 934 failure to yield incidents between January 1st and May 17th. People are just, since the police aren't allowed to chase them, they're just driving away.
Laughing.
The police do have the license plate.
They do.
And they do follow up on these. I understand.
Well, yeah, they could send deputies to your house. The sheriffs could knock on your door and then pull you out when you're wearing a wife beater or something, and then the news catches it. Because only the classiest people run from the police. But no, it's just terrible. You say, oh, well, we're not going to let them chase criminals under any circumstances, and then you end up with this. This is the problem with not enforcing the law. I mean, I'm not saying that they should go 100 miles an hour through a residential district over nothing, right? I'm not suggesting that. There definitely should be rules about when and how they chase these people. Whether the lights and siren are on, what's acceptable. Because, of course, with lots of cops and the license plate number, you can catch up to them. But the idea that you're just never going to chase somebody if they try to get away is ridiculous. Because I think at some point the police are becoming passive-aggressive and just saying, fine, you won't let me do my job, suffer the consequences.
Can you blame them?
No, you can't blame them at all. I would do the same thing. We've already established in previous shows that I'm kind of a dick. All right. This was just a quick, fun one. Sort of as a palate cleanser, I was looking up some information about another story which I actually dropped, but I found this thing, and I did not know this. Mobster Al Capone ran a soup kitchen during the Great Depression.
Yep.
Yeah. How did I not get the memo on this?
Al Capone, I mean, he was a bad dude, but the bad dude still helped people in some cases, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to the MS-13 soup kitchens if things get really bad around here.
Well, the thing is that it to be completely fair with the soup kitchen, it did also serve as a cover for them to move stuff. Mm-hmm. So their people could come in, get a bowl of soup, air quotes, pick up whatever they needed to, and then get out. And it would be so encased in that number of people who were truly desperate that they could then move out very easily. So it wasn't completely altruistic, but he still helped people who needed help.
He still helped a lot of people who needed help.
I give him credit where it's due. Like, he gave coffee, sweet rolls, he served breakfast stuff. Like, they had served breakfast. Like, no one asked any questions. It was great. I remember the documentary back when history had documentaries.
He was a vicious murderer, though. Just bear that in mind.
That's the reason why Al Capone's the one that did all taxes.
Yeah.
Well, he still cared about his PR, because you never know when you're going to be in front of a jury of your peers, and anything you can do to just introduce just a little bit of doubt. But I don't understand how that man who did this thing could have done this other thing. Brain hurt.
Yeah. Evading those income taxes.
Go ahead.
Charge him.
I was gonna say there's actually a video Dankula did on Al Capone that's worth watching. But one of the things also that he did that a lot of people don't know is he's the one who started the what we now do with milk cartons of dating them and their expiration date. He started that as well.
Did he really?
Yeah, it was because he had a cousin or at least some member of his family who almost died from bad milk. And so as a result, he started having it be printed on the milk carton when the expiration date was.
He bought a milk processor called Meadowmore Dairies, and he lobbied the Chicago City Council to pass a law requiring visible date stamps on milk containers.
Yep.
This is from the Smithsonian.
And not those silly bags like the Canadians have.
hang on, guys. Hold on. That's a bit of speculation. That came from a park ranger at Alcatraz that supposedly Al Capone popularized expiration dates on milk back in the 1930s. The story goes that one of Capone's family members got sick after drinking some expired milk, and Capone got interested in the milk industry. He bought up a milk processor called Meadowmore Dairies, and he lobbied the Chicago City Council to pass a law requiring visible date stamps on milk containers. He did not do it himself, but he did lobby for it with the Chicago City Council. If you want the real story.
Very cool.
Yeah.
It's interesting, sort of the origins of things we take for granted, like the little things, like expiration dates on milk. You'd think it would come directly and normally from government, but I guess not.
They would have gotten around to it eventually anyway.
A lot of people,
bastards.
A lot of people died from food poisoning back in the day.
Yeah.
That was a problem.
Botulism. Yum.
They had no way
some
to
bad food, right?
keep their stuff good. I mean, they didn't have refrigeration. They didn't have knowledge.
Well, there was a TV series on when I was a kid, I guess in the 70s and the 80s, called Connections. The host was James Burke, and they would start with a particular discovery or invention, and then show what the logical consequences of that were. Refrigeration, in the modern sense, I believe there was an episode where they talked about quinine and malaria and all that sort of stuff, and the need for refrigeration and dealing with those problems as we were running around being nasty imperialists, which led to the creation of commercial refrigeration, which, of course, changed everything in terms of how we create food and move it from place to place, and food safety. Because
and
without
refrigerated transport too.
Refrigerated transport and Geode's entire part of the country would have never been settled in any meaningful way without that technology. So the entire Southwest would be just empty if it wasn't for that technology.
That's right.
Yeah.
We're just lucky that ammonia has such an agreeable set of temperatures where it vaporizes and becomes a liquid.
Yeah, exactly. It's just, and it's plentiful, and it would, you wonder why Birdseye Foods has such a funny name. That was Clarence Birdseye, who basically engineered the refrigeration of railroad stock.
Sweet.
Yeah.
So where I grew up, about a quarter of a mile from my house was a stone ice house where they would store the ice for keeping things cool during the summer, food and stuff. You know how you'd get a block of ice?
Yeah.
We used to climb on that thing, and it was the greatest fort ever, but way back when it's how you got your ice.
Well, even without ice, they used to have a feature in houses in California that was called a California cooler. And what it would do is it would create a column of air that you draw air up from like the foundation era, and then it would have shelves with slats where you could put your fruit and things in it. With the cold air from down below would go up and pass over it and then go out a vent. And so it created a natural, cool, slightly humid air to keep your fruits and things in. And so unlike, you didn't have to use the ice box for those things. You just wanted them to keep without full-on refrigeration. And it's the same kind of principle as the cooling towers on these buildings that you'd see in Arab countries. The more energetic molecules go up the cooling tower, and then it makes it nice for the people down below. You can do all sorts of fun things if you just think about how things work. In the interest of time, I'm going to skip the next 3 solar articles. And I'm going to skip the free speech thing. We're going to go straight to penis news.
Screw free speech.
Yeah.
We still have free speech.
Well, in theory.
really.
Metal detectorist in UK finds ancient Roman penis pendant. This
Silver penis pendants like this are rare. There's something really funny about that.
Sentences you never thought would be written.
So this is the thing. I was completely unaware of the fact that you just have like a donger on a pendant. I'm like, I don't know why that makes particularly good sense, but yeah, this was a thing that they did. But simultaneously, while they were also thinking about dicks, penis graffiti and explicit insult carved into ancient Roman stone raises eyebrows at Roman fort.
Nice.
It's a penis, because why wouldn't you have this thing here? Archaeologists in the UK recently had their eyebrows raised when they discovered an X-rated carving on a stone at a Roman fort. The graffiti features a crude penis accompanied by a phrase that experts say translates to "the shitter" next to someone's name. And it seems to have been etched out by a Roman soldier to insult a comrade. The stone, which is 16 inches wide and 6 inches tall, was uncovered May 19th in, can't pronounce, the ruins of a Roman fort just south of Hadrian's Wall, Vindolanda. I knew a girl named Vindolanda. A fortified structure that served as the northern frontier of the Roman Empire. Yeah, so essentially, these are the ones that they like to say were half black in the BBC stuff.
Yeah, right, sure.
Yeah, because we had people of color in the UK. So, of course, people from Northern Africa are indigenous to the UK.
Sure.
Yeah, I just like it because
Asians.
it's one thing to get out a Sharpie and just say, for a good time, call Yolanda and then put a phone number.
It's another
Right.
thing to deeply carve it in stone.
It's another thing to
takes
carve,
brain.
That's just time.
to carve a peen in stone and then
Because it's
add
not-
like
It's
insults.
not even etched, right? It is. Look how
that's
deeply
deep.
carved.
Yeah.
That was a pissed.
They
Yeah.
were full in on this.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
were.
That I love
think
that.
doesn't this kind of this kind of humor just humanizes the past, but also makes you feel so much closer
does.
to these ancient peoples. I love
Penises, large
Nothing
and
has
small. The Romans apparently had a lot of dongers on the mind. That's the follow up here.
it. Oh, I love it.
So that is the show for tonight. Does anybody have anything else they would like to talk about?
I'd like to go on record saying I would like to go hang out with the aliens on the Dyson spheres.
Absolutely. Is only if there's ice cream.
If there's bluebell
I'll
vanilla
bring the
bean,
ice
I'm
cream.
there.
I'm not going anywhere where there isn't ice cream. Sorry.
Hip to that.
Yeah.
I don't know where we're going because I couldn't hear, but I'll bring the ice cream.
But with that, I'll rest in peace.
All right. Anybody
Rest
else?
My case, I mean.
Yep, good.
No, sir.
All right. We're done for tonight. Thanks, everybody. Good night.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
That's all for
Nice.
now.